there are real changes that can change the debate. And remember, what we're interested in is not just changing the debate, but changing behaviour. Tax is paid voluntarily in the UK. I know there's law, but actually the revenues say 90% of all tax is paid with very little effort expended on their part. The law is to enforce the action against the 10% who don't voluntarily or so comply. But we still have to change behaviour, and this is what these three changes are about. The first, quite simply, is compulsory country-by-country reporting. You've heard a lot about country-by-country reporting. The OECD is now demanding the UK has accepted that companies, multinational companies, should prepare country-by-country reporting accounts to file with the tax authority, and with absolutely enormous and draconian measures surrounding this to make sure they never get into the public domain. That is absurd. It is going to happen that this information gets into the public domain. It is needed in the public domain. It is paranoia that is keeping it out of the public domain. And why is it needed? A, because we want it. B, because investors want it. C, because this is the only way in which global companies can be held to account locally, which is fundamental to what I believe is essential to, first of all, hold companies to account, and secondly, to make sure they pay the right amount of tax in the right place at the right time. So the campaign to get this information in the public domain has to go on, and of course the fair tax mark is part of that process, but that is of course not all we're about, but it is one part of it. The second change is actually, in a sense, a response to bite mark. I'm old enough and have been around long enough to well remember that when I started training as a chartered accountant, every single limited company in this country had to be audited, and every single limited company in this country had to put its full accounts on public record. That, of course, has been undermined over the last 20 or so years by the red tape agenda. I think that red tape agenda has been wholly misplaced. What we now end up with is that companies have to prepare full accounts for their shareholders and then don't have to put them on public record. Their only cost of providing full accounts on public record is the price of uploading a PDF to the web. That's it. There is no other change that is necessary to make sure that every single company in this country accounts for the tax it pays. Why should every single company in this country account for the tax it pays? Because, quite simply, society gives limited companies the most extraordinary privilege, the privilege to not pay your debts. Just imagine somebody now thought up the idea that we should take a new idea to Parliament, which is that two people could sign a piece of paper and as a result not pay the debts that they owe to their creditors if something went wrong in their business. Imagine, would that get through the Human Rights Act, whatever Human Rights Act we might have at some time in the future? No, of course it wouldn't. It'd be abuse of other people's rights. And yet we've discovered limited liability works. It does work. It protects businesses from accidentally things going wrong. It has let capital be accumulated. But the point is, it is an enormous privilege. If you want that privilege, the price is publicity, and the price is paying your tax. And so the answer is, if you don't want to go on public record, don't form limited liability. It's very simple. But if you do, you must have your accounts on public record. We have a right to know whether you're paying for the privilege you've got. The third one is something that I have also long been associated with. We need to have a general anti-avoidance principle in UK tax law, which simply says, if you try to cheat, you won't get the benefit of doing so. This is an extension of the general anti-abuse rule, which was introduced by the last government. I'm in the paradoxical position that in 2013, the government was putting through that rule, and I sat on the committee that wrote the government's rule, and at the same time Michael Meacher was putting forward a private member's bill opposing it and actually suggesting a much tougher general anti-avoidance principle, and I wrote that as well. So there was a very perverse debate in the House of Commons one day when the government and the opposition were discussing two bills, both of which I had been involved in writing. I enjoyed it. It won't happen again. But I do believe we need this because it basically says, don't try it on. It changes behaviour. All of these three are about changing behaviour for the better. Why these changes? Look, to improve governance, to enhance quality of reporting, make sure, etc. Covered those. Why the fair tax mark? Well, quite simply, because I believe that we have not got those changes on the agenda as yet. So what we are doing, quite simply, quite straightforwardly in my opinion, is trying to go out there and show that another world is possible. We've heard it from SSE this morning. It took some brave bills. It did. It did for the co-ops who were originally behind us. It has for Bitemark. It clearly asks questions of people that make them uncomfortable. And I'm pleased it makes people uncomfortable, bluntly, because I think if you're not uncomfortable, you don't change the world. So we're asking people some uncomfortable questions about what it is to be a responsible business in 2015 and onwards. What it is that you should do to be accountable for the privileges that you've got, how it is you are responsible to the stakeholder communities that you serve. And in particular, and I do believe this is important because right at the very beginning, when the whole tax justice movement started, when it was something that, well, John Christensen and I had as a little bit of a sort of dream as well, we put developing countries right at the centre of it, which is why, of course, ActionAid are here, and why Christian Aid are here, and why so many other NGOs have supported what we do. And Oxfam are here if they are. I'm not sure if they are yet. Haven't seen. Hello, Alison. Yes, you are. Why are all those people here? Because we did put developing countries at the centre of it. And country by country reporting is a way of ensuring developing countries get the information they need. It is shocking that this week the OECD has published the rules for the sharing of tax information with regard to country by country reporting data, and developing countries that do not have tax agreements with the developed countries where the head offices of multinationals are located will not get this information. I was at the G8 summit in Northern Ireland in 2013 when David Cameron said he was going to deliver country by country reporting. He stood about as far away from me as you are, and he refused to catch my eye so he wouldn't ask her a question about it at his press conference in the afternoon, although I'd helped him out at his press conference in the morning. The point is, there is a failure to deliver for developing countries in the OECD proposals. We need to expose that. We need this information on public record because every developing country around the world is still losing more in tax than it's getting in aid, in my opinion, and therefore, unless this data goes on public record, they won't have the information they need to deliver the outcomes. One final thought, and I haven't the ability to give you the data as yet. It will be published very soon. But I have now done what I believe to be the first ever study of real live country by country reporting data that has been undertaken. It will be published by the end of this month or very early next month. It is on the very limited country by country reporting data produced by banks in Europe. I will tell you, I'll give you a sneak preview. Oh boy, are they tax shifting. Oh yes, very definitely. And guess where it's going? Into all those places you first thought of. Who's losing out? All those places that you next thought of. So country by country reporting is going to reveal that people are indeed abusing the tax system. That is what it was designed to do. That is what it will do. And only by having it on public record will we change the world. That's our aim. Let's aim high. Why not? We might just achieve it.